Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show and our usual Monday night roundup looking at the weekend's action, which tonight is primarily going to have a bit of a League One flavour to it with myself, Gareth Walker, and Stephen Downes alongside me. A little bit later on, hopefully, Jayson Boocker will be able to join us to talk Leeds United as well. First things first, how are we, gents? Are we well?
It's about mate. How are you?
Good, mate.
Yeah, all good. A very prosperous, festive and New Year period, I think we can safely say, for all three of our respective clubs. So I think we should all be in fairly good spirits overall.
Yeah, and Gaz has made top row for once, so, he'll be absolutely delighted.
Not often that happens, is it? Top two? Actually, no, we're not top two. We're second and third out with me and you, Chris.
We are second and third, but we're 1 and 2 for tonight. So, there we go. Anyway, you've had your fame for tonight, Downsy, with your, to be fair, your very good 20-odd minute appearance on BBC Radio Leeds tonight. So
I did, yeah. So if people want to listen to that and then come back and listen to the exact same conversation on it, you're more than welcome to.
Look, we'll try and mix it up where we can. We'll start off with a quick run through the non-league scene over kind of New Year's Day and the weekend. Of course, with the weekend being, well, the weather that we had, a hell of a lot of the non-league scene was postponed. Games that did take place on Saturday, Halifax in the National League, they were beaten away at high-flying Forest Green Rovers. They were ahead at the break, but 2 goals from a Forest Green debutant, Ricardo Reis, who's just signed for, I think, Merthyr Town from the National League North, turned that game on its head to leave Halifax pointless on the afternoon and still just outside the playoff places. As I say, it was a pretty mixed day in the National League in terms of games that actually went ahead and those that didn't. In terms of more recent games in the Northern Premier League, guys, they got a win away at Stocksbridge Park Steels on New Year's Day. 3-1 away at Ian Richards, the current guys manager, away at his former side that he left earlier in the season to take the reins at Nethermore Park. In the MPL East, in the most recent weekend of fixtures that took place, quite a few games, sides, in our region in action on New Year's Day, including, of course, as you can see, Bradford winning 2-0, Bradford Park Avenue winning 2-0 away at Brighouse Town. Emily beating Oxford United at home by 3-1. Silsden were heavily beaten away at Matlock Town. That is Adam Clayton's Matlock Town, which I'll come on to in a moment or two. And then Pontefract Colliery, they won a Yorkshire derby with a 2-0 scoreline against Garforth Town. Just on that one, I'm not sure whether either of you two have kind of seen it over the course of the weekend, but Adam Clayton in line for possibly the quickest departure and return to a club in England for many a year.
Yeah, a bit of a weird one, isn't it? I think I don't really know what's happened there. Wasn't there a change of ownership or something years ago where a manager got sacked and then within a game? I know that's not quite the same thing, but just weird things happen.
Something quite drastic like that some years ago. In this case, it seemed that basically Adam Clayton had an approach had been made for Adam Clayton. Matlock had kind of rebuffed it to Adam Clayton's displeasure. The board at Matlock then decided that, well, whatever happens from here on out is going to upset the season and derail things. So they then parted company with Adam Clayton, obviously freeing him up to then take on his new job. And then the talks that Adam Clayton had with whichever club it was that he was possibly going to fell through, and he rejected the move. So in the end, David Hilton at Matlock decided, oh, well, we'll reinstate you anyway. And as you can see, they got off to a winning start. They had the cheek, I think, to put a tweet out saying, like, Adam Clayton with a comfortable win in his first game in charge. Sadly, an expense for Silverstone. But yeah, a very strange one over the course of the New Year period, it's fair to say.
Quite lucky to still be in a job, isn't it, really?
It's a strange one, isn't it? It really is. And then finally, just looking back from Saturday as well in the NCL, again, not too many games in action. Thackney, they got a 2-2 draw away at Boxford Town. Haas Georgia with a couple of goals there. Albion Sports lost 2-1 away at Handsworth. Nathan Cartman still going strong, getting a consolation in that one. Route 1 Rovers, they were 3-0 against Harrogate Railway. Zach Khan on the score sheet, as well as a couple from Reece Thompson. And then Wakefield with a 3-0 win as well. Comfortable win for them over Athersley Recreation. So all positive results from our region with the exception of Albion on Saturday in the NCL. Right, let's turn our attention then to League One whilst we've got you all here. Where do we start? We'll start with the happier side of West Yorkshire, I guess, and the side that on Saturday went away from home and took all 3 points at the Seaside, Gaz. Nice little trip to Blackpool.
Yeah, I didn't go, and it's a shame I didn't really. I was telling you before we went live, I managed to go to both games over Christmas that we lost and missed the 3 that we won, so maybe that's telling me something. I was at Leyton Orient and we lost 2-1, although probably undeservedly so. And then I wasn't at Blackpool yesterday, even though it's only like 45 minutes from me. I didn't go. And we managed to win 2-1 yesterday at Blackpool. Hang on, what were I just saying then?
What were you saying?
I'm getting myself all confused here, lads. I'm sorry, I'm half asleep. Basically, I was at Leyton Orient and I was at Mansfield and we lost both of those. And I missed the 3 that we won, which were Blackpool and Wigan and Port Vale. So it's telling me something that I shouldn't be going. But apparently, yeah, yesterday, it wasn't even on Sky, so I can't really talk much about the game. I only know what I've read. Which is apparently we dominated the first half, deservedly went 1-0 up. Blackpool came back into it in the second half a little bit. I believe Blackpool had a lot of injuries. I listened to Ian Everett afterwards and he was talking about a threadbare squad. I think they had a few people playing out of position at the back. They actually got a goal on the break, really, to having been more in the game in the second half. Got a goal on the break to equalise. If you watch it, it's a long ball over the top, which splits the 2 centre halves. And Ashley Fletcher, who runs in behind, who's in really good form for Blackpool at the moment. I think he's the top scorer. He's got a lot of goals recently, really, since Everett went in, and he beat Sam Walker to make it 1-1. And then I believe it was fairly even for the rest of the game, and we got our winner based on a brilliant bit of pressing from Anthony Sarcevic, which has become a sort of hallmark of us this season, pressing high up the pitch, won the ball back off the defence, played in Will Swan, danced around a couple of defenders and scored his first goal for a few months. I think it was his 7th of the season. It's his first for a few months, so that should do him the world of good. And then we saw it out and won 2-1. So we remain in 3rd in the league. I think we're 2 points off Lincoln with a game in hand, although that could change because I think there's some cup games coming up where we're out the cup, so we'll play. I don't know if Lincoln are in it or out of it or what, but we play at the weekend. And some teams don't, do they, because it's the FA Cup. But our actual game in hand is Port Vale away, which hasn't been rearranged until March, I don't think.
Yeah, so this was Saturday's results. Just kind of took, John, as you say, you saw on there, obviously, Bradford with that win at Blackpool. Town with a 2-2 draw, which we'll go on to in due course. Obviously, in Lincoln, we got a good win in the early game against Peterborough. In terms of the fixtures this weekend, I'm just going to take off the banner at the bottom. So these are the games, and as you can see, Huddersfield are in action away at Stockport. Bradford host Rotherham, and then ours is postponed. I can only assume Exeter is still in the cup, but I can't remember who they've got. I kind of lost complete track of the cup draw, to be honest, after Lincoln went out. So you're right. It is going to be in level in terms of those games played by the time you get Saturday afternoon out of the way, guys.
Yeah, that's if it goes ahead. I mean, the forecast don't look great, does it? So I don't know what.
That's also true.
Yeah, what the situation is going to be regarding frozen pitches and the like. I was looking at the weather earlier on today, and it looks like it's going to be minus figures sort of Friday, Saturday. So hopefully the game will go ahead because Rotherham aren't in great form. I think they're bottom of the form league. Have they lost 6 on the bounce or something at the moment? So we could do with that game going ahead, although teams do normally end those runs against us. Because after that, our fixtures look quite tough, actually. After Rotherham, we've got Cardiff at home, Huddersfield away, Lincoln away, Doncaster at home, who always turn up against us, and then Luton away. So our run after Rotherham is quite sticky. So I would like to see us pick up 3 points on Saturday and head into that in good fettle.
Yeah, as I said, just double checked, it is 6 straight defeats for Rotherham, and they seem to be the side at the moment. If we take just take a broader look at League One for a moment, they seem to be the side that are just sinking like an absolute stone at the moment.
They really are, because they were poor, weren't they, at the start of the season? And then they had a little bit of a resurgence. And I remember maybe a couple of months ago looking, and they were like mid-table. But then they've gone on this horror run where they've lost 6 on the bounce and dropped right back down again. I mean, I know the division's tight. We've talked about it a lot, haven't we, on here? But the division is tight, but they have dropped right back down again. Like you said, bottom of the form table, 6 defeats on the bounce. They'll probably end that on Saturday, knowing our luck.
They're not a good side out, Rotherham, and they don't have a lot of depth, to be honest. They've had Sam Nombe out injured, who's like their main player, really.
Full table there.
But then, because of that, they've then ended up playing young lads that they've signed from non-league, and yeah, it's just a bit of a weird squad at Rotherham, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talked about how this league is kind of split in, frankly, various different ways over the course of the season. You know, I think it was only a couple of games ago, just before the New Year's Day games, Gaz, that I put something in our group chat about how it was like the top 9 as one race, and then the rest of the league were basically fighting off relegation. There was something daft like 3 points between 9th and 21st. And again, here we are a couple of games later, and that picture has changed slightly, where, you know, your playoff hunt is probably still just about your top 9, but there is more of a gap now between kind of those in the higher mid-table echelons and the bottom 4.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that. The big movers recently look like they've been Mansfield and Reading. I know Mansfield won, I think they won 3 on the bounce when they beat us. I was at that game on New Year's Day, and they actually looked really good, did Mansfield, that day. So, I mean, we were poor. We started the game really well. Tyree Wright wasted a couple of really good opportunities when we were on top. And then Mansfield scored totally against the run of play, probably the first chance that they'd had. Went 1-0 up and never looked back, really. We just didn't recover from going, you know, from sort of the setback, and they actually looked really good. I know Resorts has signed a new contract there recently. He was really good on that day, scored on New Year's Day, scored twice. And then, like I said, Reading as well, they were awful when they came to us. Can't remember if it was back end of November, beginning of December. They were really disappointing. But since that game, when we turned them over, I think it was 2-0 or 2-1. They've had a bit of a resurgence, and they're now up to 9th. So there are a couple of movers, but as you say, the division is breaking a little bit with, like you said, the playoff, the sort of top 3 or 4, and then the playoff hunt, and then a gap. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it develops over the coming weeks now that the busy Christmas period's out the way. We managed to pick up a couple of really good wins against Wigan and Port Vale, when those sides were probably a bit of our kryptonite, really. What we've struggled against so far this season, teams that have come and been really, really physical. We've done better against teams that have wanted to play out from the back, and we've been able to press, as we've talked about. Port Vale and Wigan were both very, very physical. So to come out of those 2 games with 2 wins was a feather in our cap and good signs for the rest of the season.
It's interesting you point out, Reading, because if I can find the right graphic, one moment. Yeah, that one from yesterday's games. You know, you look at that Reading 1, Stockport 0, and it's a huge result, and it was a late winner as well. But obviously, going back to the table towards the top end, it was a big game for Stockport to lose. And look at Stockport's form over the last 6 as well, both of you. I mean, Downsy, you look at Stockport, they were a side that we expected to certainly be challenging for the top 2. And their form has just been so inconsistent of late. Obviously, with Lincoln winning there at Boxing Day, then they picked up, I think, a win after that. And then, obviously, to then be beaten by Reading is just the nature of League One this season.
Yeah, I think what's held Stockport back this season is the fact that their midfield has been so disruptive, with Lewis Bate being out for the majority of it. Oliver Norwood's had a bit of an injury. I can't remember if it's groin or hamstring over this last couple of months, and that's really hampered Stockport, because one of the main areas of their team is that central area where they can really dominate the opposition. So listen, they're still in and around it, much like Bolton, a lot like Town and Luton have crept up, haven't they, over the last couple of weeks, with Jack Wilshere coming under real pressure at Luton, but they've gone back up, and it just proves that you put a little bit of a run together in this league, and you can be up there or or going the other way, as we've just spoke about Rotherham. I mean, Reading, they really slipped, hadn't they, to I think something like 16th, 17th, and now they're back up to 9th. So, the games are a bit weird in League One at the moment. I know Barnsley have got on 23, I think now. Stevenage on 22 there, so they've got 2 games in hand, 3 games on some clubs. Town have played more, Lincoln have played more. So it really does mean for an interesting period, really, in the league, because surely at some stage you would hope that the fixtures would sort of equal themselves out, wouldn't you? And that might be interesting to see where teams are then. But yeah, as just going back to Stockport, Liston Town have got them coming up on Saturday, as I'm sure we'll speak about. And I'm not looking forward to that fixture, if I'm being honest, because they're a good side in my opinion.
Yeah, I would go with that. I mean, Gaz, obviously you mentioned the fixtures for City there. I'm just having a quick glance at comparing that with Lincoln. Obviously, we don't play Exeter actually at the weekend because of the cup game for them. So our next game is away at Luton, followed by Burton Albion at home, Bradford at home, Wigan away, Plymouth away, Bolton at home, and then we kind of Lincoln seems to have this run of and again I appreciate. As League One has proven this season, games are not played on paper. But we seem to go through this run of kind of playing some of the bigger hitters at the top end of the table. They're having a run of the sides that are more mid-table, that, to be fair, have been the sides that have proven most dangerous in some cases. And I think I mentioned to you yesterday, we've got a run in March where we have to play, I think it's, who did I say it was? I think it was Cardiff, Huddersfield. I can't remember who it is. Hang on, I'm just have to double check that. That was it. Cardiff away, Stockport at home, Huddersfield away. I'm like, I don't like that. That's come late March. But we were talking before we came on air, and you were saying how nice this little gap is that we as Lincoln and Bradford have kind of opened at the moment. And I said to you, I like it. We've opened it far too soon, though. There's 7 points between yourselves and Huddersfield at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nicer if it was the back end of March or into April when this gap was there. I mean, we did talk about it, and I suppose it's like, I know Downsy was sort of getting at it there a little bit. The games probably aren't going to even out until we get into April, because this is how lower divisions look due to postponements and cup ties and the weather and all sorts of things. We might not get a fair reflection until we get into March, April. I mean, and also the point that you made, Chris, is that anybody seems to be able to beat anybody in this division. It really is. There's no real.
And I know Port Vale had just sat Darren Moore, but nobody expected them to batter Blackpool 5-1, because Blackpool have been a side in reasonably good form.
Yeah, I mean, when they came to Bradford, I said I was meant to be going that night. I was poorly, so I stayed at home and watched it on Sky. And that was the first game of the caretaker manager. And you could tell that they'd been told to go out and fight and scrap and show something for the supporters to get behind. And they really, really did that. And they made it really, really difficult for Bradford. So although the discrepancy in the scoreline, the gap, the 5-1 was a bit of a shock, it didn't surprise me that they beat Blackpool. It was just sort of the manner in which they beat them that surprised me. I do think that they've got some good players at Port Vale, as most teams do at this level. You mentioned the run that Lincoln have, did you say in March, where you play Stockport, Town and Cardiff? That is very similar to ours that's coming up in the next couple of weeks, where we have Cardiff a week on Saturday, and then we have Huddersfield the Saturday after that, and then we have Lincoln on the Tuesday night after that. So those 3 games could tell us a little bit more about where we might be come later in the season. But also, you've got the January transfer window thrown in there. Noticed about City is, although Graham Alexander probably won't admit it, he talks about the strength of the squad and how he trusts everybody in the squad. It has been noticeable, particularly against Mansfield when we were forced into making changes because he didn't want players to play 3 games in sort of 6 days. That when we're bringing in players like Byrne and Kelly and Kavanagh, they're just not quite up to the standard of the rest of the squad. And obviously, on yesterday at Blackpool, we managed to go back to what you might call a stronger team, more of our first 11, and we're back on the winning trail again. So it'll be. I would imagine there's a few teams that are in a similar situation regarding that, and if they can strengthen those sort of fringe players, backup players, strengthen the squad in January, it could make it really interesting, especially considering how tight the division is.
I think certainly judging as well, Steve, from the conversation that you had on BBC Radio Leeds earlier on, that people will have heard that. Certainly for all of our three sides, I think for a lot of the sides in League One, the top end, there's been a lot of strengthening going on because you've got sides that are not quite where they expected to be that will want to strengthen to try and get where they want to be. You'll have sides like Lincoln and Bradford that are probably overachieving that will want to strengthen to try and maintain those sorts of positions. And then you're going to see sides in mid-table try and go for broke a little bit to try and make the playoffs. It could be League One and this January window could be absolutely chaotic.
Yeah, it could be. It may well be. I mean, they were saying on Radio Leeds earlier that Ryan Sparks has gone across to Germany to talk with the owner of City, and that would be an interesting conversation from Ryan's point of view, because he'll be probably going, look, give us a few more pennies, and you never know, we might get you in the Championship. And I'm sure the owner's going, but I've already, according to what Gaz has said over the season, he'll be saying, well, I've already given you a top 6 budget. So
yeah, would. It's like, even I'm looking at Lincoln and thinking, like, we have to strengthen to maintain this. And I imagine, obviously, for Ryan Sparks, well gone over. What was it? The analogy that you used on me later? I think taking an empty sack with them and hoping to come back with a full sack of cash.
Yeah, and I just think, teams like City and Lincoln need to sort of build on the good start that they've had, and obviously in the first half of the season. For Town, I don't know, we may touch on it, but I don't think there'll be a lot of business done. I think, there'll be a bit of wheeling and dealing. We spent a lot of money in the summer. I can see maybe a couple of players coming in, but really, Lee Grant has got the squad there to be doing what really, we should be doing. I think you have to give great credit to both Lincoln and Bradford for throwing really what are 2 stones into the pond and causing some ripples. And Stephen,
you'll have to replace Leo Castledine when he gets recalled by Chelsea and sent out to a Championship club. Before we talk more on Town's transfers, Gaz, obviously one name that is already in the building is that of Louis Sibley. Obviously versatile, good experience for a man of his age, only 24, but he's been around the block, and he came through at Derby as one of those kids when they were really struggling and when Wayne Rooney was trying to get what he could out of basically an academy side at Derby. And obviously hasn't had the game time this season, certainly at Oxford, and on the face of it, looks a really solid signing to take on loan for the second half of the season in League One.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it, Chris. I mean, just based on what Downsy was saying there, and City fans are using the word opportunity at the moment, and I'm sure Lincoln are probably looking at it as the same. We're halfway through the season, and to be halfway through the season and have that buffer on 4th, 5th, and for those 2 teams in particular to have a chance of getting in that top 2, it's an opportunity that you perhaps need to have a little go for. You're ahead of the game going into the second half of the season. Are you going to be in this position again? Maybe not. With regards to Louis Sibley, yeah, spot on. Graham Alexander basically said he ticks all the boxes. He's versatile. He's experienced. He's young. He's got a promotion on his CV. He can score a goal. I think it was quite funny, actually, because there were a few tweets getting retweeted from when he first came on the scene at Derby, and I know they were saying it tongue in cheek and in jest, but they were likening him to Jude Bellingham because they were really struggling at the time, and it was like he's our Jude Bellingham, he can do for. And obviously it was tongue in cheek, it was just, but he did really well for Derby, and then he's gone to Oxford. It's not really worked out for him at Oxford. He had a loan spell at Rotherham, I believe. Rotherham fans speak very, very highly of him from the time he had there. I actually thought when we signed him that he was coming in as probably a direct replacement for Alex Patterson, because his main position does seem to be central midfield, and Alex Patterson's not made the squad for the last month or so. There's a rumour going around, I think, that stemmed from Paul Huntington, who's doing some scouting for Carlisle, that Patterson's got an agreement with Alexander that it's probably best that he moves on. So the natural conclusion was that Sibley would come in to replace Patterson. But I believe yesterday at Blackpool, he came and played sort of on the left of a front three when he came on as a sub. So I think the versatility thing is another a massive tick in the box. If he can play anywhere down the left and also in central midfield, it gives us another option. And it'll just be interesting to see who else we try and upgrade, should I say, as we progress in January. Because, like I said, that word is opportunity, and particularly for clubs like Lincoln and City, they've got to be looking at trying to take it.
Absolutely. Let's turn our attention to Huddersfield for now. I'm sure we can come back to anything else that kind of regarding League One. So we'll turn to Huddersfield. Start with James's comment. I think he says his dad's cat, who knows a dog, that also knows the youth manager at Chelsea, saying that Leo Castledine is going nowhere. I mean, surely though, the form that he's in, it's a tricky one actually, because I'm sure Leo Castledine is probably in the happiest place of his life in terms of where he's at, kind of games, getting game time, scoring goals and the like. But then at the same time, from a Chelsea perspective, you're just never quite sure what's around the corner with Chelsea, especially with the likes of Maressi going in. Who the hell saw Liam Rosenior rocking up at Chelsea and taking the Chelsea senior job after leaving Hull, less than a year and a half ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about transfers there and what teams might do. You know, the most important transfer that Town could do this window is keeping hold of Leo, to be absolutely honest. And, you know, Sunday, was a perfect example of how, you know, he takes Castledine off and puts a very out of form and cold Ben Wiles into the team, and we suddenly look, you know, far worse. So for me, we need to keep hold of him. He's a fantastic talent. He's in a long line of sort of talents that we've had from Chelsea, going back to Ben Chilwell and Trevor Chalobah and Levi Colwill.
I was going to say you had Levi Colwill as well, didn't you, at one point?
Yeah. Tino Amarin, who hasn't really worked out as well as the others, but you know, you look at Trevor Chalobah and Levi Colwill. I mean, they're both Chelsea starters now, near enough. You know, you look at Ben Chilwell. Obviously, he's been a Chelsea stalwart for years, and Leo Castledine has certainly got the talent to go a long way. He's only 20-year-old. He's scored some unbelievable goals so far this year. Town's top scorer with 10. And yeah, it's certainly a player that we want to keep hold of. Now, whether we can do, I don't know. He's out. I think he's out of contract in the summer. I mean,
don't get your hopes up.
Oh, I'm not. I'm absolutely not. But if Kevin Nagle, you know, if Kevin Nagle's ambitions are as high as what he wants them to be, I mean, go pay the $4 million that Chelsea want or whatever they want for him, you know. But that ain't going to happen. We know that. So yeah, let's just try and keep him on loan.
Bloody hell, Gazza. Money bags over here suggesting going and spending $4 million on a man, on one player. Good grief.
Is that the same, like, $4 million coming from the same place the $3 million came from for Joe Taylor?
The invaluable Joe Taylor as well.
Yeah, what's happening with him, Downsy? What's going on with him?
Sorry, not invaluable. Unfindable Joe Taylor.
Yeah, what's going on with him?
Yeah, he's gone missing. I think he's gone shopping somewhere in Shrewsbury for a bit.
He wears Wally Duck.
No, I just I don't know what's happening really. I mean, they've clearly had. It's clear to everybody outside of the club, I think, that they've had a falling out, but obviously nobody's saying that from the club, so you can't give it any, I suppose, credence in a sense. But yeah, I don't really know what's happening. He can't get in the team. He's not even on the bench. Yeah, I'm not really sure, to be honest, Gaz.
I saw a little rumor on Twitter, possibly last week sometime, that Doncaster might have inquired about taking him on loan. Now, whether there's any truth in that, I don't know. But if he's not making your bench, Downs, he's someone that you'd probably want to move on and replace. What, you bring another striker in?
Yeah, well, the problem is though, he's 22. You know, so unlike Alfie Mays, he's really still got his prime to go through. And
all that money, money spent.
I'd hate to think of that we'd wasted a lot of money on a player really that we're not going to see.
So much money.
Shut up, Chris. that we're not going to see in his prime, and that we're not going to get the best out of. Alfie May's coming to the back end of his career, and as good a player as he has been, and he still is. I'd like to hope that we don't sell Joe Taylor, but it's football, isn't it? Who knows? We've done it before. We sold Marcus Stewart to Ipswich, and we know how that panned out all those years ago. So,
because the thing is, though, genuinely, we talked on the way down to Lincoln, for example, on New Year's Day, that I was like, look, when he had that loan spell at Lincoln, a little over 18 months ago or whatever, I think he finished with a 1-in-2 strike rate. I think he was 10 goals in 19 games. So I was like, we'll take him back. We'll take him on loan from Town. But realistically, this is the thing, though. Town aren't going to loan him upwards. They're not going to loan him to a side around. At the same time, you'll struggle to recoup, even the initial money that was kind of paid out before, without factoring the add-ons, because of the fact that he's not playing games and not scoring goals. So it's a bit of a tricky one, because it depends on how big of a falling out are we talking? Is it irreconcilable? Or are they going to be able to shake hands and get back to playing football? Or is it a McCarthy Keane situation and someone's headbutted the other and he's off?
Well, I don't think it's quite that bad. But
no, to be fair, Joe Taylor's only 5'7", probably couldn't reach the headbutt league grants anyway because he was a keeper. So,
and he's not an Irish international. But in terms of where that might go, who knows? I mean, that rumor may well be right, Gaz, about him going on loan to Donny. I think the thing for Town fans is that the interesting fact is, when he was at Luton last year, he wasn't getting on the pitch at Luton, and Luton strikers were really not scoring goals at the time. They were a terrible side with Luton when they came down to the Championship, and he couldn't get, he was on the bench, or he wasn't in the squad there. Is there something else? Is there an attitude problem, or is there? I don't know. Nobody seems to know, because nobody's here asking the question, but then also nobody's, from the club sort of giving any detail. To be honest, it's all a bit strange.
It might be a case of
what could have been
that he goes on. I can't see you selling him, like I said, because you'd have to take a huge loss on him. It might be a case that he goes out on loan, finds a bit of form, scores a few goals. Obviously, like Chris says, they're not going to loan him to a team that are up near the top, but a Doncaster, someone in the same division who's sort of a bit lower down the table. It might be. Yeah. It might be a case that he goes somewhere like that, scores a few goals, and then he either it parks the issues until the summer, and he either reconcile in the summer, or if not, he's scored a few goals and made his value increase again before he can be sold on. So it might be that. If they're not going to reconcile now, I'd guess that one of those two things will happen, mate.
I mean, James just said he's a rattle out of the pram type player, obviously, is Taylor. I mean, I think that's a bit harsh. He just needs some love and an arm around his shoulder, and he'll get back to a 1-in-2 strike rate. Just needs to be somewhere valued.
I think James is probably correct. He probably is that sort of, but I don't think he's a bad apple like Town have had in the past. No, not like that. But what I would say is he's probably very frustrated. He's a very frustrated young man that's, been, I'd say, one of the big players at Lincoln, that's made a difference to your team. So he's sort of loved that limelight. He's then gone back in at Luton, where he's not really trusted by Edwards, and he's in and out, and he's not got the minutes. And then he comes to Town, and he probably thinks this is his big chance, really, to be a top striker at the end of League One, and probably thought when he signed for us, he'll come in, score a load of goals, and probably get a big move up to the Championship. But that hasn't happened at all for him, and so I think he's got to be quite careful how he acts, because we all know things are spread in the football world, aren't they? So I'm not saying that, by the way, where I have no evidence to say that if he has thrown his rattle out the pram, but it's just a very interesting situation.
It is. Let's talk the footballing side of it then, and yesterday in particular. As mentioned in the title of tonight's stream, you let the Grecians get away with a point. Was it a point they deserved, or was it 2 points dropped by Town?
2 points dropped by Town, but also by the end of it, they deserved to have the draw. In a sense, they made enough chances. They should have won it actually, with Lee Nichols making an unbelievable save just before they equalised. So really, they could have won it. And I don't think anybody coming out the ground would have said that they not deserved it, but they did enough probably to win it as well. I mean, Town also had their chances. We didn't take them. Bojan hit the ball wide, and we had a couple of other opportunities. So either side could have won it. It was a very weird game, really. I thought Exeter would have sat back more than what they did, but they came out and tried to really play some decent football. And I think they smelt a bit of blood at half time when we didn't go 3-1 up. But because of that, they came out, pressed us. Lee Grant makes 5 changes in the second half, none of which work. And by the end, they deserved the equaliser. It's a great goal by Wareham in terms of the finish, but the actual defending is absolutely disgustingly abysmal.
I rated Exeter when they came to Bradford, mate. I thought they looked a really good side. They surprised me a bit as well in how they came and played. Like you said, they were quite expansive, quite attacking, knocked it about quite nicely. And I was quietly impressed with them when they came to City. And I think we did well, really. We were maybe a bit fortunate. I think we won 1-0, but we were a little bit fortunate, really. Exeter could have easily got something out of that game and probably deserved to get something out of that game as well. So it doesn't surprise me what you're saying about them, mate.
They beat us at our place as well. They're one of the few sides they've seen to win at Sinsel Bank. Apparently, it was one of those where we battered them for 90 minutes and they scored, I think in the 94th minute for them to win 1-0.
Yeah, they're a bit of a weird team. They keep taking, they took a scalp off Barnsley, didn't they? I think, haven't they beaten Stockport this year or Bolton? They've beaten somebody else up there anyway. And I think that, when we played them at home, away at St James's, they had we had 23 shots in the first half, and they looked rubbish. But they've had a real sort of turn in form. I don't think they'll go down, Exeter, because I think they're too good. I mean, the difference between them and Northampton, and they've been in quite similar form, is that Northampton didn't really press us like Exeter did. Exeter got on the front foot, won the ball, and managed to get the goals that they did. They don't concede many at all either.
No,
I've got to ask you both.
Well, I was just going to say a couple of the comments. Firstly, to Michael, says evening, lads, evening, Michael. Thanks for joining us. You can get your comments in as well. And I was going to bring up Downes' long-suffering other half with the comment of Huddersfield plays well for 20 minutes of a game, Stephen, mate. I love that she's calling you mate, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
And this is in relation. That is in relation to our lengthy discussions regarding the game on New Year's Day between Lincoln and Town. She has also reviewed the hot chocolate situation at Lincoln and puts Lincoln as being better than Huddersfield's, but not by much.
Well, it does say other words, but you refuse to show that comment. So
it's quite interesting that she's mentioned hot chocolate, because my missus came with me to Mansfield on New Year's Day, and she was talking about how the hot chocolate at football grounds isn't great, and she was waiting to get one from Costa on the way home.
That's what we did. What we did.
But considering the fact that you went together in the car to Lincoln with Downes' missus on New Year's Day, I do have to ask you both about how that game went. Firstly, from a Huddersfield point of view, but then also, Chris, from a Lincoln point of view as well. So go on, Downes, talk us through Lincoln away on New Year's Day.
Well, what I would say is,
if he says it, I'm going.
What I would say,
I know what you say. I know what Chris is dreading him.
I think it was a lovely New Year's Day to. That's better, Chris on the bottom. I think it was a lovely day to spend with my missus at a football game. I think the car journey there was very. It was quite. What's the word that I'm looking for?
Pleasant.
Pleasant. It was amenable. Let's say. What I would say about the game, Gaz, is that Town played absolutely horrifically in the first half. We didn't play well at all. Lincoln was certainly the better team, and I was surprised that they didn't take the lead. They had good chances through Draper and and Hackett. So I was quite happy at half time with a 0-0, to be honest. Second half, we really stepped it up and dominated the game for the first 20 minutes, for sure. Took the lead deservedly, I thought, through those spells. But I always knew that Lincoln were going to score, because we were not able to deal with the type of football that Lincoln were playing in the fixture. What I would say is, unlike Bradford, right? So when at the Bradford game, you absolutely smashed us to bits after the first 15 minutes. You played superb football, right? Passed it, made some really good runs, great moves. Lincoln lobbed it up top, right? And they played effective football, but not great football. And unfortunately, the gentleman on top doesn't seem to understand that I am actually paying Lincoln a compliment, because they are
the most backhanded compliment you'll ever see in your life.
No, it's not. It's effective football. It's effective football. It's not good football.
I don't know what. Having been at the Lincoln Bradford game for a start, I don't know what this wonderful passing football that Bradford are meant to solid play. They're arguably more physical and direct than Lincoln.
I disagree. I actually disagree.
What's a surprise?
You two are brilliant. I do have to give you the right to reply, Chris, because I know you were dreading him using that phrase, effective football. It's something that you've bantered about between you both in the group chat. Because this is an open forum, Chris, you have a right to reply. So I'm going to let you tell me your side of the story for the Lincoln Bradford game, the Lincoln Huddersfield game, mate, as well.
I just don't understand this. Like, we are quite effective, but we also knock it down really well. Like, we were playing triangles left, right, and centre in the first half, just because you and your little telescope couldn't see him in the first half.
Wow, bringing the eyesight out, bringing the eyesight live on there. Just remember that.
We were superb in that first half, and if we'd have been 2 or 3-0 up, to be fair, I don't think Downes would have complained.
I said that you played well.
Hang on. It was just chances that we didn't take. And actually, you know what? Yesterday against Peterborough, we were poor for the first half an hour, great for the last 15 minutes, and end up 3-1 ahead. And it's weird. How many times have we said this about football on the whole? It's such a weird game at times, because you can get halves where you deserve to get so much more out of it, and you sat at 0-0. And then Lincoln had a half yesterday where we were the worst side for like 2/3 of the first half against Peterborough, and yet we come out at half time 3-1 up. It's just the nature of the game, I guess, isn't it? All 5, by the way, lovely, flowing, beautiful moves. If you want to go and check the highlights,
I bet they were.
You know what? You'd be surprised, Sunshine. You'd be surprised. I think the thing that surprised me, to be fair, with Town actually was not just how poor they were first half, but I think that was also down to how we kind of set at them. But just the lack of there was no effectiveness or style that you could really decipher from Town. I know that's been a comment and a criticism from Town fans over Grant Paul all season long so far, to be fair, is the lack of a consistent identity, let alone a consistent performance. But yeah, it's one of those. If I think we were the better side for the majority of the game. I would have taken a point beforehand, mostly for the car journey home. Yeah. But in the car journey home, it was just frustration from me. Quiet, silent frustration, listening to my music, not getting drawn into an argument.
I didn't try and draw you into an argument.
Absolutely. I was thinking that was a game that we probably should have won and would have deserved to have won it. And it would have suited us a lot better league table-wise where we are. But thankfully, we were able to kind of back it up with a performance yesterday, and out of Huddersfield at home and Peterborough at home from the 2 kind of New Year games, I probably would have taken 4 points before, and it's kept it in a good spot really. So yeah, it is where it is, I guess.
I would be very interested, guys. If you go, I haven't got the time, and I'm sure you haven't either. Chris probably does because he looks into all this sort of stuff. But I'm sure if you look at the completed pass rate of Lincoln's players compared to the average, he's looking now. You can see the screen lit up just as I said it. Right, you look at the average pass rate of a League One side. Lincoln will not be in the top 5. I bet Lincoln will be in the top 5 for long balls as well.
I mean, we only had 33% possession yesterday. against Peterborough in a 5-2 win.
Doesn't that tell you everything? Doesn't that tell you that long ball team?
But we're not a long ball team. You can have 33% of the possession.
Prove me wrong. You
can have 33% of the possession though, and play it on the deck. Like possession. How many times have we said, especially, and I know Gaz is with me on this because it's how Bradford do it as well to a point. But
you don't need to bring Bradford into it.
You can have whatever possession you want. Doesn't judge the style necessarily.
We're not on about Bradford. We're on about how Lincoln play long ball, and you can't prove to me how Lincoln don't play long ball. So live on air. So anyway, Gaz, that's how the day went. The hot chocolate was obviously better at Lincoln than what it was at Town, and I fully respect Becca's opinion on that because she's now tasted both of the hot chocolates. So yeah, Lincoln have got the better of us on hot chocolate, which is fair enough.
Oh mate, you've opened a can of worms that you really did not want to open. I'm just
the podcast is now over.
I'm just going to read out some of the stats from the Lincoln Huddersfield game on New Year's Day.
I'm not talking about individual matches. I'm talking about in general.
For a start, thank you for giving us a rare game where we had more possession than the opposition. Lincoln, our 52.9% possession, our 18 shots to your 6, our 4 on target to your 3,
not about shots.
Our 36 touches in the opposition box to your 14.
Not on about touches.
Our 395 passes in total for Lincoln to your 349. Let's have a look. Forward passes of 169 to your 148. Total long balls, the difference was only 12.
Difference in what? Hang on. What was it? What was the difference? What was the difference?
Total long balls, 76 to 64. You're not exactly Barcelona.
76 to 64. So
yeah, which means you're not playing Barcelona either. Hang on a second.
I never.
This is the best one. Successful final third passes, 93 to your 61.
Yeah, but Chris, you've just proven my point. I'm not bothered about touches. I'm not bothered about shots. I'm bothered about long balls, and you did more long balls than Huddersfield Town, who played crap, by the way, in that first half.
That's in one game, though.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Take that across the average season. I bet you they're one of the most long ball teams in the league.
Mate, the difference is 12. That's negligible.
But if you times that by 46, it's quite a lot of long balls, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, but you could say that about the possession stats, but that's the complete anomaly because we don't.
I know Gaz is on my side here. We've both seen Lincoln Bradford. I'm sure he is.
Gaz is saying no. I think we'll draw a line there, boys, because as somebody pointed out in the group chat after the game, it was probably better for the rest of us on the West Yorkshire Football Show that game did end in a draw because it prevented one of you from killing the other.
There would have never been a death.
Just a brutal assault.
Yeah, just a hammering.
It could have made for an interesting car journey home if there had been a winner either way, to be fair. But that wasn't to be. And luckily, we backed it up with 5 goals against Peterborough yesterday. So
all right, we do it all again on Valentine's night.
There'll be no love lost for that one, will there?
The game that Chris is not coming to. So there we are.
What? What?
You said that you're not going to it, are you? It's Tuesday night.
No, it's not Tuesday night. It's a Saturday.
It's Saturday. All right. Well, you might turn up then. You might not be a coward.
It's a Saturday afternoon. Hang on. This is coming from a man that didn't come to the home game against Huddersfield Lincoln last season.
I was busy. Busy being spectacular.
Speaking of that, Gaz, obviously it's Lincoln Bradford. Whilst John out, have I tied you down for that one yet?
I need to look at my finances. I would like to go, but I need to look at my finances. Are you planning on going over?
I'm certainly tempted. I need to possibly sort out some childcare issues, but it would be good to get to that one. To be fair,
it's finances for me. We'll have a chat. We'll have a chat in a few.
Gaz has got to work out whether he's got to be Gordon Brown or George Osborne this month.
I hope I'm neither, to be honest.
Right, what are we on? We've kind of digressed slightly with League One, let's be fair. Downes, you can have your final thoughts looking ahead then to this weekend, obviously for you guys away at Stockport, and Gaz for you guys at home to Rotherham, kind of round up your thoughts for your respective games this coming weekend.
Go on, Gaz, do you want to go first?
We're too polite, aren't we, me and you, mate? That's what it is.
We are. We're bros, honestly. We're bros. You go first, Gaz. Honestly, you go first.
Yeah, well, it's just pretty much as I said earlier regarding City and Rotherham. It's a game that we need to win, considering that it holds us level on games with Lincoln at the top. It's also a Rotherham side that we talked about before. I've lost 6 on the bounce, and given our run of games that's coming up after that, with obviously Cardiff, Huddersfield, Lincoln, it's a game that we need to win on Saturday. Hopefully, the week off that we've had, or the 6 days off from yesterday, will mean that we don't have to rotate too much. I would guess there's hopefully a chance that Bobby Poynton might be back fit. He's missed the last few games with a foot injury. So yeah, it's they're not must wins, because as we've talked about, City are massively overachieving this season. We said that obviously Lincoln and City, the 2 sides that are punching above the weight really, but City probably more so than anybody. So it's not a must win by any stretch of the imagination. But given what games are coming up, it's one that we've got to look to win if we want to stay up there with a shout for the top 2 and cement our place in the playoffs.
As in terms of town, it's trip to Stockport. We didn't do too well there last season. That they won't be sort of very impressed with the loss to Reading. I can see it being a very hard game from a town perspective. And I would say, I know that Gaz never gives predictions, but I'll go for a town to lose, 2-1.
I mean, to be fair, I'm hoping for a draw, I think, between Stockport and Huddersfield. That would be the best case, because with you both be on 39 points, they'll just keep you that little bit further away. And as for City, sorry, Gaz, I'd give Rotherham a point. I think that would be all right, because that would keep you that'd be a point behind us with the same amount of games played.
Yeah,
draws all around.
We're sandwiched in between Lincoln and Town at the moment, so you're probably both hoping that City lose, which I totally understand, because obviously we're all up there, aren't we? We're all in with a shout.
What I would say is it just proves that Chris has got 2 more clubs added to his list in Stockport and Rotherham that he supports this weekend.
Like you and the rest of your 19 teams in the Premier League for whoever Leeds are playing.
Woo!
Speaking of Leeds, we'll quickly kind of round up with a brief word on them, really. Don't think Jay's is making it on, sadly. But I'm sure he and Brownie will be doing some more content this week. And, of course, they were on yesterday as well with a post-match review for their game against Manchester United, a 1-1 draw at Elland Road. I guess it's kind of been sidetracked a little bit, the fact that actually on the face of it, that's a really good point and a good performance from Leeds to take a point out of the derby against Man United. It's kind of all been overshadowed really by what Amorim had said before the game and subsequently what's happened today with Amorim's departure. Gaz, I'll start with you a little bit on kind of the point for Leeds in that game, and then obviously everything that's kind of happened since.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch the Leeds against Man United game, but prior to the game, I actually thought it was a game that Leeds could win. Leeds are really good at home. They're in good form at the moment. Calvert-Lewin's scoring regularly. I watched them in the previous game against Liverpool, and they defended really, really well that day, to be fair to them. Liverpool hardly had a sniff. They didn't do a lot going forward, but I expected them to marry up that sort of defensive performance with the attacking side of the game, which obviously they often do at Elland Road. And I thought it was a game they could win, especially when they went 1-0 up. I thought they'd go on and win the game. So I think the fact that United equalised pretty much straight afterwards was a blow for them. When you talk about Amorim, we talked about it in the group chat today, and I think me and you agreed, Chris. I don't know what Downsy thinks, but I think Amorim was doing an all right job there with regards to performances on the field. What are they, 5th, 6th in the league? That squad isn't any better than 5th, 6th in the league. I think that obviously the thing that's probably done for him is the off-field relationships with Jason Wilcox and whoever else is involved there. But yeah, I think that they need an overhaul in the squad. They've needed that for a while, and I thought they were there for the taking against Leeds, and the fact that they got a draw, it's a bit of a harsh sacking based on how they're doing in the league, to be honest. But like I say, I believe it's come from a falling out with Wilcox.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. Down to your take on the situation?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of the game before heading off to Daku, and I thought Leeds were performed really well, to be honest. They really stood up to Man United. I agree with Gaz. I thought that they could win, particularly with the game being at Ellen Road. Man United aren't any great shakes. The squad's all over the place, and there's always massive pressure, or there was massive pressure on Amarin to get results. So I thought it was a game that Leeds would have a good chance of getting a result out of. And from what I saw, they really stood up to them. I think, like I said, they'd be disappointed that the goal came straight after the fact that they'd scored. But that normally happens in football, doesn't it? You always concede. You're always more likely to concede, just after scoring. So, a point's a good result, though, isn't it, for Leeds United in terms of helping them stay up. Obviously, results around them again went for them with West Ham collapsing at Wolves, and Fulham, I think, lost, and the Bournemouth obviously lost as well. So there were teams around them that weren't doing so well. Forest as well. So, as in terms of Amarin, I think, listen, Man United brought in a coach to play a certain way. They wanted him to play 3-4-3. They had a set style that he's a very much a set style coach that keeps to his principles. They made him manager, so they didn't just make him a head coach. They made him a manager.
I think this is the problem, though, because this is what seems to have been the fallout, certainly for Wilcox and what's the other fella called?
Berardi, is it?
Yeah, Berardi, whatever. Is that he was too stubborn, because obviously Amarin was consistent with his 3-4-3, and apparently this was too negative for what Wilcox and Berardi wanted.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is that you bring a coach in, and they were saying for ages before Amarin turned up, they wanted a coach with a set style that would bring a more of whatever the Man United way is back to the club. And he obviously kind of a younger head coach as well compared to what they've had previously. And obviously what they've said to him is throughout the season, we'll back you to some extent because of Sesko and a couple of other players that they've brought in, but they haven't really backed him in terms of the actual players that he needs to play in that system. And then because of the results and how things have gone, they've clearly changed their mind. And he said, in the meeting, like Gaz have said, they've probably had a falling out, and Amarin's gone, well, hang on, you brought me in to play a certain way. I'm not going to change the way I play and my principles. But again, you haven't really backed me to succeed in the style that you clearly wanted at the start of the season. So it's either you're going to have to back me in January, or you might as well get rid of me. And they've decided to get rid. But once again, at Man United, much like at some other clubs, player power has made a difference. I bet you anything now, because they've put Darren Fletcher in charge, you'll see the players really come to the fore now and perform like they haven't been doing for the last couple of weeks. Man United will go on a bit of a resurgence again, and then they'll be in the exact same position as what they were this time, this time next year. I can see Gareth Southgate going in there. He seems to be a man that Sir Jim Radcliffe likes.
Well,
but I don't see the real good times coming back to Man United anytime soon, if I'm absolutely honest. There's more problems there than just a manager.
Gonna bring up this Ratcliffe versus Wilcox and Berardi thing, because obviously Wilcox is the sporting director. Ratcliffe is the owner, chairman, whatever that role is. I think he fits. Only 3 months ago, he did an interview with the Financial Times, Jim Ratcliffe, where he sat down and openly said, Judge Ruben Amorim after his 3 years in charge.
Yeah.
That was 3 months ago. Now, I don't get the impression that this decision has come from Ratcliffe. I think this has very much come from the Wilcox and Berardi side of, obviously, the falling out, and they've decided they've basically whinged and moaned and said, look, the relationship's broken down. It seems a really odd thing to do when you've got your overall owner of the club saying just 3 months ago that we're going to back him, we're going to give him a time to judge him after his 3 years on this contract, for it to then fall apart so soon after that sort of vocal backing from the top dog at Man United to be in this position. And you wonder who's going to have most of the say when it comes to recruiting the next man.
It won't be Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Well, it won't be Sir Jim. Sorry, guys, go on.
Well, this is the thing, though, actually, because on that, it's always been Sir Jim Ratcliffe who's always allegedly been the one that's keen on Sir Gareth Southgate, whereas the sporting directors have always been against Southgate. I mean, I think Glasner will be the man to end up there. I don't know what you think, Gaz.
Couple of points from me. I think the first one was something that you both kind of touched on a few minutes ago. It's the whole manager against head coach thing. Amarim's come out publicly and said, I came in as manager. Various journalists have looked into that comment and said, well, when you were announced as a head coach, mate. So there's obviously been some kind of friction there from the start. There's also been a comment from one of the leading, I can't remember which journalist it was. It might have been Ducker, one of the Times journalists or Telegraph journalists today, saying that Amarim wanted Ollie Watkins in the summer and they gave him Sesko. There's obviously been problems there on and off for a while. When you're talking about Southgate, I think, he is a Ratcliffe choice, but from what I'm led to believe, reading around the subject a little bit without knowing a great deal, and I think Lou said something in the group chat today that it was Ashworth, wasn't it, that wanted Southgate?
That was a link.
And Ashworth's no longer there, so it'll be interesting to see what sort of route they go. I think you're probably right. I think a Glasner or maybe a De Zerbi or an Iraola, it might be somebody like that. The fact that they've done it mid-season and are now waiting until the end of the season to appoint a permanent successor is probably the right thing to do, because, I mean, when I'm reading, I'm looking at it from a little bit of a Liverpool point of view with Slot, and the stories are that they won't make a change until the summer. So it's whether they've basically looked at it and said we're better off with Darren Fletcher until the summer when we change it, or we're better off with Amarim until the summer and we're going to change it then. And they've decided that they'd rather go, because of the friction that's between the sort of higher ups and Amarim, they decided to go with Fletcher till the summer and change it then.
I think it's an interesting one, especially if they end up with Glasner, because you could probably get Glasner now. Like, let's be honest, Crystal Palace are not in a great kind of state at the moment. Glasner's been very obviously peed off with a lack of recruitment in the summer, and well, depends on how the rest of January goes. Obviously, they've already brought in Brennan Johnson, but you kind of look at Oliver Glasner and think, well, he's got less than 6 months now on his contract. You could buy him out of that contract for next to nothing and get him in kind of now to have the next 6 months to kind of assess his squad for the summer. But obviously, with that comes the risk that if it goes, he doesn't hit the ground running over the course of this next 6 months, that by the end of the season, United fans might want him out.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sorry, go on, Downes. No, you go, mate.
I think there's a few interesting things going on here, because obviously you've got the Maresca situation at Chelsea, with Leroy Rossini, and I know
Leroy, crikey, pulling him out of retirement.
I know
he got sacked at half time once.
He
did, yeah.
Not Leroy Rossini, sorry. But you've got the situation there, and I know a few of us disagreed in that scenario and whether it's the right job for him. But I wouldn't be shocked if Maresca turned up at Man United. I really wouldn't. I think it'd be going from the fire to the frying pan, as it were. But if I were Glasner personally, unlike Rossini, who I actually think if he went to Chelsea, it wouldn't hurt his reputation, in my opinion. I think if Glasner went to Man United and it didn't go well, I think Glasner's reputation would be seriously damaged.
The thing with Glasner is there's been rumours that this might have been little conversations going on for a while, and he's been eyeing up the United job for a while. There's been a little bit of a undercurrent there, but he's also another one that's wedded to three centre halves. He plays with three centre halves. That's what he's wedded to.
Yeah, he likes the same formation, the same system.
Exactly, mate. And you're talking about, you mentioned Maresca there. I mean, the part of the reason that Chelsea have got annoyed with him is he's rumoured to have been having talks with Man City about taking over from Pep when Pep leaves, and that's one of the things that's not gone down well at Chelsea. So it is very, very interesting. The other two names that were linked with it today were Eddie Howe, who's obviously possibly walking a bit of a tightrope at Newcastle, although they won at the weekend. And then just to throw another name in there, I saw Tommy Tuchel mentioned, but obviously that would have to be after the Euros.
I think the Man United job's set up for Southgate. I honestly really do.
I just can't see. I'm just going to bring up Oliver's comment. He says that he doesn't think Gladstone will be going to United. He reckons that'll be another Moyes story all over again. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but can you imagine when Man United had been if they'd actually given David Moyes a chance? They could have, all of this crapness over the last decade potentially could have been avoided. But he says the club is bigger than that. Xavi, Zidane, etc. I mean, it's an interesting one. I had seen, I can't remember which pundit it was, one of the pundits on Sky Sports News this afternoon talking about Xavi. Imagine it was Kevin Hatchard, to be fair, the kind of European football expert who I had a lot of time for. And he was saying that actually Xavi, on the face of it, could be an appointment that will work. The reason that he fell out, ironically, though, with Barcelona was because he started talking about the club's hierarchy, the financial aspect of the club, and criticising those above sort of thing. You're like, Christ, just don't do that again, Xavi. And obviously with Zidane's an interesting one because he's been a serial winner at Madrid and has then had so little pressure, in terms of wanting to go into management elsewhere that he just hasn't bloody bothered. He's always said as well that because he doesn't speak English, that he wouldn't be keen on managing in the Premier League as much as I'd love to see it. So it's an interesting one. It'll be, I appreciate we're going to wrap up in a minute or two, but it's going to be really interesting to see where it pans out. Kevin says Southgate spied at Pizza Hut Salford Keys.
That was one of 2 points I wanted to make regarding Zidane. You made the first one, Chris. He doesn't speak English, which is why he's talked about not wanting to come to the Premier League. There are also rumours in certain circles that he's being lined up to take over the France job when Deschamps leaves after the summer, and he's holding out for that. So, there's all sorts of cards at play, and that'd be interesting to see. Sorry, Downes.
I think it's been a really interesting 72 hours in football. I actually really do. We Maresca at Chelsea, Man United, the news today. Obviously, the news up at Celtic, which seems absolutely... And right, I know we have to wrap up, but how mad is it, right, that Martin O'Neill spent 37 days as interim manager, won I think he won every single game.
Yeah, he won 7 of 8.
Did he lose one?
Yeah, right? He won 7, lost 1 of 8.
And yet they got rid of him, or he left. They put Nancy in charge, lost a cup final, lost to Rangers, lost to Hearts, and he's only spent 33 days there. I find it absolutely incredible.
It's great, isn't it? Like my only hope is my only frustration is going to be when Celtic appoint somebody new, and then they go on to win the bloody SPL, and this has been the most exciting title race with Hearts being the leaders. It'd be such a shame now if Celtic pulls something out of the bag and win the bloody league. Like when every neutral fan on the planet is like, no, let Hearts win the SPL.
If they've got any sense to go back to Martin O'Neill on their hands and knees.
I think they will. I don't think it'll take much persuasion.
I said that to a mate yesterday, that if Celtic don't appoint Martin O'Neill, Hearts will win the league. If they do appoint Martin O'Neill, Celtic will win the league. And I firmly believe that's what will happen. What's interesting about, you mentioned the time that O'Neill had in charge of the time that Nancy had. The reason that O'Neill had so long in charge was because they were waiting for Nancy.
They were waiting to get Nancy out of his contract after the MLS season had finished at Columbus Crew. So they were waiting all that time to get the man that they wanted. Also, and I'm just talk amongst yourselves for a second, because I'd seen that obviously with Wilfred Nancy being relieved earlier, that bloody is Paul. I saw like the headline out: Paul Tisdale, sporting director, also goes. And I'm thinking that can't be the smartly dressed former Exeter City manager Paul Tisdale.
It really
is. Yeah, I was like, how the feck has he ended up with a head of October 2024, he was appointed head of football operations at Celtic after managing unsuccessfully, largely, at Colchester, Bristol Rovers, and MK Dons. He was brilliant at Exeter, don't get me wrong. How the freaking hell did he end up with a head of sporting role at Celtic? I know he's a very suave man who always looks the part, but Jesus Christ! It's that thing, isn't it? Don't dress as a League Two manager. What is it? Dress for the job that you want, not the job you've got.
After Town appointed a Scottish scaffolder to be manager, that no surprises me in football these days. I'll be absolutely honest.
Well, let's end on that note before we bring up some PTSD for Downer. Thank you, Gaz, Steve, for taking the time that you're able to join us on the show. Big thank you to everyone that's been in touch on the comments as well. Don't forget, if you've caught us a little bit late and you're only just midway through, you can give us you can watch the show from the start again on YouTube. We've even got the ability now where if you're watching it on a mobile, there is a mobile stream that makes it easier to watch. Don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe on the channel, please. We do appreciate the support on all the videos that we get. Jay and Brownie will be back with some Leeds content during the week. Downsy, you and the Town Talk lads did a show last night, I think it was.
Yeah. Got one next Sunday.
Town fans, that's there if you've not seen it already. That is there to be watched as well. But from myself and from Gaz and from Downsy, big thank you for tuning in this evening. We'll see you soon and probably next week. We're back next week here on the West Yorkshire Football Show. Good night.